director for Texans for Accountable Government. I know, I can't help it, it's what I do. And what we're doing today is we're bringing two organizations together that normally do not work together. We're bringing Lone Star Gun Rights together with Texans for Accountable Government. And what we're doing is we're saying, hey, it's time that the state of Texas, we get away from what happened back in 1871. 1871, we said, hey, only people that can actually have guns in the state of Texas are anyone that's not a freed slave, okay? And they could have guns. So after 1871, the state of Texas came back to the legislature. They said, you know what we're going to do? Everyone can have loan guns in the state of Texas. All right, everyone else can have loan guns. Because the majority of people live down in Galveston, Texas. In Galveston, everyone had loan guns. They had shotguns. They had rifles. They had hammers. And so they said, you know what? What we need to do is we need to make sure that these people can keep their loan guns, okay? But for the handguns, what we're going to do for the handguns, we're going to actually prohibit handguns, and we're going to regulate those. So then, after that, you know, let's speed forward a little bit. Like 1995, we first got our concealed handgun license. With that, the state of Texas says, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do a background check on you in order for you to carry a handgun, and we're also are going to make you pay a fee, okay? And that's where we got the concealed handgun license, where you can walk around and carry your handgun. Now, what we're here to do today is we're here to say it's time for the state of Texas to pass constitutional carry. Constitutional carry, that means that so anyone who can legally own and possess a firearm, you can walk into a gun store and purchase that firearm, you will be able to carry that either long gun or handgun without a license, as long as you can legally pass the background check. You don't have to pay a fee. You don't have to go to your state police and get special permission. That's what we're saying here in the state of Texas today. We're going to come together as one organization and speak with one voice. And so I'd like to bring up State Representative Jonathan Stickland to talk to you about why it's important and why he brought this bill up and why we all need to stand together and support constitutional carry.
Thank you, Michael. So as many of you know, we've been working on constitutional carry for a number of years now, and we're very excited about the opportunity to actually make this law in Texas. And I have been overwhelmed by the amount of support that we've been getting this session for HB 375 that frankly did not exist in the last session. There's been a lot of education involved, a lot of groups that are coming together and saying, you know what? It's wrong that Texans have to beg for permission for their Second Amendment rights. It's wrong that we're forcing people to pay a fee and take a class for their Second Amendment rights. We're very excited about HB 375 this year. What I've been the most excited about is having representatives who were not supportive in our efforts last time come to us and ask honest questions and say, we're hearing from our constituents, we're getting feedback from folks, tell me what is really going on. And when we explain to them why we are pushing HB 375 and what it actually does, we're getting a lot of people say, I can get on board with that, including folks from the other side of the aisle, which has been very eye-opening for me. There's a lot of folks who have said, you know what, I may not agree with guns being in Texas the way that you do, but if we're going to have them, which we are going to have from a political standpoint, then this is the way it needs to be done. And so we're seeing a lot of folks come on. I think you're going to start to see a lot of other representatives. There's a couple here with us today who are standing with us on HB 375, but in the next couple of weeks, because of the grassroots pressure and the folks who have actually taken a look at the bill and looked at it from its merits are going to be signing on in support of this bill. So I'm very excited about it. I thank y'all for being here today, and I think we're going to take some questions here at the end. So.
All right, now I'd like to bring up State Representative Tony Tinderholt. Yeah, come on up, sir.
This is a pretty easy one for our office and for our district. As part of the platform, we're going to support Representative Stickland's bill. And like they said, if you have any questions, we'll be available after the press conference. Thanks.
And now I'd like to bring up the Executive Director for Lone Star Gun Rights, Justin DeLoche, to talk to you as well.
All I have to write mine down because I tend to not say everything needs to be said, so bear with me. Thanks for coming out today, too. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. As Legislative Director for Lone Star Gun Rights, I have a mission this session. That mission is getting constitutional carry passed in Texas. Gun rights are one of the many issues in which Texas is thought to lead the nation. While that is true for other issues, the sad fact remains that Texas is trailing far behind other states on the issues of gun rights. If passed this session, Texas will join 11 other states that already have constitutional carry enacted. Vermont has had constitutional carry officially since 1903, when the Supreme Court ruled that any law requiring a permit to carry a firearm is inconsistent with and repugnant to the Constitution. Since then, Alaska, Arizona, Wyoming, Arkansas, Kansas, Maine, Mississippi, Idaho, West Virginia, and Missouri have followed suit this year. This year, Alabama, Kentucky, New Hampshire, North Dakota, and other states have been pushing their legislatures to pass the same. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has the audacity to tell the public that he is unsure if the votes are there to pass it this session. In January of 2015, as the 84th session began, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick made almost exactly the same statement regarding open carry. In an interview with the Texas Tribune, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said, "Open carry does not reach the level of prioritizing at this point. I don't think the votes are there." In May of 2015, the House voted 102 to 43 and the Senate voted 20 to 11 to pass open carry. Either Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is talented enough to whip votes that he doesn't believe are there, or he does not really care about Texans having the non-infringed right to bear arms. In May of 2016, at the Texas State Republican Convention, 8,500 delegates voted in favor of making constitutional carry a plank in the platform. In fact, it is the #1 legislative priority in the Republican Party of Texas. While Lone Star Gun Rights certainly supports Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's priority legislation that will reduce the fees to obtain an LTC, we do not view this as a viable substitute for constitutional carry. The LTC program should be maintained for those who wish to seek the benefit of reciprocity in other states, as well as other benefits that come with having one. However, it should not be a requirement in order to bear arms in the great state of Texas. I would like to say thank you to Jonathan Stickland for taking the lead on constitutional carry for the second session in a row. And I would also like to thank everyone who is standing here with us today. So, thank you guys.
If it wasn't for Justin, who keeps this at the forefront for everyone to remember, Justin actually puts his foot on my back so I can put my foot on other people's throats. And that's what we do. So please, Representative Stickland, if you can come back up and we can actually take some questions. Go for it.
How are you going to convince House leadership to put it on the floor?
We're going to overwhelm them with the majority of Texans who feel that this legislation is what we need. Again, sadly, Texas is not leading on this issue. A lot of the scare tactics that have been used in the last session are no longer valid with the other states passing this and the problems not coming to fruition. So we're just going to show the leadership here that, number one, it's not their job to decide what lives and what dies. This is the People's House and the Texas House of Representatives, and there are many of us who have been pushed by our constituents, pushed by the party that we signed up to run under, and the Constitution of the United States that we swear an oath to, that matter a lot more to us than what House leadership decides what should and shouldn't die.
You said scare tactics. What are you referring to from last session?
I'm referring to when open carry was being discussed, there were a lot of people who said it was going to be the wild, wild west. As soon as we pass, that is not what we have seen in Texas. That's not what we've seen in other states that have passed the same legislation.
What do you think, and maybe this is a question for you, Mr. Cargill, about this might increase straw purchases or stolen guns? I mean, what do you say to that? Do you have anything that backs that up from other
No, this is not going to affect gun sales, because even when you walk into a gun store, it doesn't matter whether or not you have a handgun license or not. The way it works right now, if you have a handgun license, then we don't have to do the background check. You still have to fill out the paperwork. But if you do not have a handgun license, then we call in the background check to the FBI. You still fill out the same paperwork. So this is not going to change gun sales at all. And actually, good instructors will support this. I teach the most concealed handgun license courses out of anyone in the state of Texas. And I support this because this is not going to affect whether or not license holders want to get their gun to carry outside of the state. And if you have a good program, if you know how to educate people, then they're going to want to take their class from you and learn what the laws are in the state of Texas to carry that gun.
I want to add too that the states that have passed constitutional carry have actually seen a rise in the number of licenses that the states continue to do. So this is, you know, we don't see any reason for Texas to be any different. We think the licenses will still be a regular thing for a lot of folks. We just believe that they should have the option to decide for themselves rather than a government mandate.
So this is the #1 priority for the Republican Party of Texas. Have you been contacted by any party officials or other gun groups supporting this legislation?
There's quite a few different groups, like I said earlier, that have come together. Of course, Lone Star Gun Rights is one of the groups that have been pushing and really leading the charge in a lot of different ways on this. But yes, we have been receiving it. For anyone that's looking, you know, Tom Meckler, head of the Republican Party here, put out an email just a couple of weeks ago listing constitutional carry as a top priority for the Republican Party. So we have been getting a lot of support. But the support that I'm most interested in, and frankly the reason that I filed this legislation, is because the grassroots folks in Texas demand that this happen. I'm looking to stand up for the people who can't afford to pay these fees, but still need the ability to protect themselves. And that's what's been interesting about constitutional carry as we've been working on this issue for the last couple of years. Seeing folks come out of the woodworks and say, you know what, I live in a bad part of town. I don't make a lot of money. I would love for the ability to carry and to take my own personal responsibility for my safety and for my family. Those are the people that are getting hurt by that. And those are the conversations that I think are really propelling this to the head of the line.
How do you avoid that vigilantism that some people have? I mean, just this weekend in San Antonio, 2 CHL holders engaged, not a defensive position. It was not a defensive position. And
Well,
that's what the license says. In defense, you may engage.
there is certainly evil in this world. I am not going to deny that. But what we see time and time again is that an armed society is a safe society. Yeah. And where people have the ability to take their own responsibility for themselves, we see crime rates go down. You need to look no further than Chicago, where they have tried to say that, you know, guns are basically outlawed in every which way that they can. Crime rates are higher there than just about anywhere else in the world. We believe that an armed society is a safe society, and we think that this is one of the best measures that we can pass to improve public safety in the state of Texas.
If this is an economic argument, what with submitting fingerprints and submitting a photo, though, I mean, if you're saying that people can't afford it, why don't you just fight to remove the taxes or remove the training requirements, not necessarily the fingerprint check or the photo check?
What we're doing is we're making the classes optional, so the CHL process is optional. That's exactly what we're doing. So I'm not.
You made the argument that you've heard feedback that people can't afford what looks like about $300 worth of taxes and training requirements.
Correct.
At the end of the day, we live in a country where you're innocent until proven guilty. What are you having to do every time you have to submit for a background check, put in fingerprints, and have your photo on record at DPS? Are you having to prove yourself innocent or guilty?
And it's the same background check that you get when you walk into a gun store to purchase a gun. They're not asking you for fingerprints. And I've actually asked the state legislature, I said, you know, why are we requiring fingerprints in the first place for a person that gets a handgun license? They said, well, we want to be able to solve crimes that may have not been solved. I said, okay, great. My next question is then, what crimes have you solved by the million license holders that we have here in the state of Texas by getting their fingerprints? They said 0. So why are we taking fingerprints to get a handgun license, but we're not requiring the fingerprints to do the same background check for someone to walk into a gun store to buy a gun?
So it's not solely an economic argument.
Well,
No.
and at the end of the day, I mean, it's a de facto gun registration or gun owner registration, whether you think it is or not. There's files and folders of gun owners in Texas, and we are against that.
Do y'all have a Senate sponsor on this?
We have senators that we are working with. We have not shown that card yet. But yes, I can confirm that we do have senators that are ready and willing to take up the fight as well.
About a month ago, Jonathan Stickland and Michael Cargill, about a month ago, you received some threatening letters at your homes related to this bill. What's the status on those? Do you want to talk about that at this time? And what role does that play in this entire process?
Well, we've unapologetically been pushing constitutional carry since really I was elected into office. You know, that just, for those of you that don't know, we received to our home, our personal home,
And you're not,
Michael?
you two aren't the only ones.
Sure, yes. There was an anti-gun group who sent some very disturbing pictures and under the guise of a Christmas card to our personal home addresses, which was you kind of take a pause there and you go, someone who really doesn't like us and frankly is a bit demented to send something like they have knows exactly where we live. Was just further proof to us that we need our Second Amendment rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not only were they, they sent those to our homes, they actually were upset. They were upset mainly with me because my parents, someone actually climbed on the second floor of my parents' home, at 3 o'clock in the morning. My parents had to shoot and stop that person and kill that person. And a lot of people's response was, why didn't my parents give them a warning? Whereas 3 o'clock in the morning, you're climbing through someone's window. The person was on probation for aggravated assault and burglary. The judge gave them their warning. So I'm not going to fall back on this. I'm going to stand firm. We're standing firm together. This is about the people in the state of Texas. People need to understand. You need to ask your state rep, your state senator, where do they stand on this issue? Are they going to stand with Michael Bloomberg? Are they going to stand with Moms Demand Action? Are they going to stand with Texas Gun Sense? Or are they going to stand with us, with supporting the people in the state of Texas and the Second Amendment, the Constitution, and do the right thing?
How do you respond to statistics that show more guns, more gun accidents? What?
I haven't seen that.
The ones I know is more guns equals less crime. So go out and buy yourself a gun.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I'm not feeling this is for the legislators. I know how you two feel. You guys probably agree with it. But does the legislation or the legislators, senators, and members of the House feel that the Second Amendment is a right no different than the First and Fourth and the other amendments in the Bill of Rights and in the Texas Constitution? Or what I've heard from some of your colleagues is kind of an option. What is the general feeling, and when you put it up for a vote, if it makes it through Speaker Strauss, what is their view? Do they see it as a right or an option? Because I see it as a right myself.
Sure. I think it depends on which legislators you're talking about. I think it varies quite a bit. But one thing that I do know is there's a whole bunch of people in the Texas legislature that have a desire to get reelected for whatever reason. And what we are determined to show is that the people of Texas demand this, so that even the ones that don't view the Second Amendment as a God-given right will respond accordingly and do the right thing, even if it's self-serving for them.
Is there any amount of regulation that you like on the Second Amendment?
No.
So anyone can have guns of any age?
I'm sorry?
So anybody of any age can have guns?
Well, that's not what constitutional, that's not
No,
what our
I'm
bill.
just, no, I'm just.
So you're talking about a hypothetical?
I'm just reading the press release, and it says that LSGR believes it's inconsistent with the views of our founding fathers to license tax and regulate the ability to do so. So I know that's not this bill in particular, but just moving forward, should this bill be passed, is there another bill in sight where you remove?
That's about as far as we could go in Texas. The rest of the stuff you're talking about would be federal level. So as far as Texas, this is as far as we're going.
Take a couple more, yes, sir.
You had some questions come up about vigilantism. So you also mentioned that there's a number of states that already have afforded the citizens the right, which has been granted them already, to carry. And probably maybe they were 12 or 14 at least. What's the data say back from those states indicating whether or not there's been more or less vigilantism and problems?
The states that have already passed this or had this, in the case of Vermont, like Justin said, for
Since 1903.
the statistics show none of that, no increase whatsoever. All right. Anybody else? Thank you all for coming out here today, and we're going to be updating on constitutional carry throughout the rest of this session. A lot of what we're asking folks at home to do will change as we get the committee assignments released and we know who to contact and where to put the pressure. But rest assured, for all the folks who care about this bill, myself, and I know Justin, his whole organization, and Michael, we're all up here and we're making the rounds at the Capitol. We are giving the education to the folks, and we're letting them know that you need to be prepared to vote on this and let your constituents know exactly where you stand on the issue. So from my end, thank you. I don't know.
Thank you, John.
You said it great.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.